Hey there, guys. I am Bobby,
Hi there, I'm Stephy Steph.
and we are Between Two Teeth. This is our first podcast, and we are
Shout out.
so thankful that you are here. We've actually been
How do we sound? Put the messages in the comment box.
we have been kind of YouTubers now for over a year. We've been called podcasters, but we never officially had a podcast.
We don't get wrapped up in titles.
We don't get wrapped up in titles. That is a very
We
good
get wrapped
way.
up in content.
We do. And we try to be authentic. You know, I'm an oral maxillofacial surgeon. You,
I am.
she just as, yes.
No, I'm a periodontist.
And we're in practice together. We've gone to dental school, med school, integrated medicine fellowships. I've done
Harvard programs.
Done my MBA, and we're trying to figure out this adventure of life. And I guess part of it is trying to figure out selfishly, how do we live our own best life? But we want you to go on this adventure with us. So, Steph, how did we start this whole YouTube thing?
So we love Zach Galifianakis, and we love his Between Two Ferns YouTube comedy sketch. And so one time, kind of toddling on the motorcycle.
Toddling. We do motorcycle.
Thinking.
That is a true statement.
And, I'll just say this. When I do my best thinking is when I'm on a run, or if I'm sometimes even in surgery, like if you're just doing something small with your hands, or if you're running or working out, it can actually unlock some very awesome thinking potential, especially if you're a little neurodivergent.
Yeah, you get in the zone. And I'm glad you brought up the motorcycle part, because that realistically is when we come up with a lot of our ideas.
It's a great way to you're still thinking, you're doing something, but it allows you to not be overly focused, and allows you to unlock a little different part of your mindset. We've had some amazing conversations. So we were on a toddle, and we decided that
I love that you use the word toddle, by the way.
It's a great word. We wanted to kind of do something similar. And I remember us coming up with the idea saying, why don't we start a show? And we were trying to spitball, what are we going to call it? And we're like, oh my gosh, Between Two Teeth. That'd be awesome. By the way, if we were lawyers, we would call it Between Two Torts.
There you go.
And so anyway, we knew we wanted to do this, and we started to write blog posts. We wanted to start promoting our idea. We had a few shows kind of in the tank there. And we're part of a local organization where we live. And we wrote up a blog post on vulnerability, which happened to be...
No, you did. You wrote this post on vulnerability.
Right. I think it has less to do with who wrote it, but
anyways,
a post was written on vulnerability.
They pushed it back to you and said, it's...
And it was pushed back as being too self-promoting. Now, the irony there is when you're vulnerable, you're putting yourself out there.
No, the other irony is that this membership group is literally supposed to support the membership. But anyways, I digress.
Yes, minor details.
And I remember you came to me and you're like, what should I do?
I was like, dang, man, I just got denied.
Yeah, you did. You got denied.
And you were like,
you're
joking. I go, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
So after being asked to, take away all the identifying factors of my blog post, we decided to do something different. We didn't want to change it. We really thought it was a good post.
And it was so you failed.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't feel like I personally failed.
Right.
I think instead we just needed to seek other people. And so one of the things that I did was I went to a national organization that was affiliated just on a different level, and they loved it, actually. They loved it so much, they ran with it. They promoted it at their meetings. They were all about getting on board with this idea. And what it taught me it's taught me that just because one door closes doesn't mean your idea is terrible. Just maybe you just haven't had the right kind of person look at it. And there might be someone out there that really thinks it's awesome.
And I think the blessing with all of that is you didn't let a closed door stop you. we ended up having someone took a look at your article once it was published, and it was a friend that I knew from 25 years ago that went, "Oh my gosh, I love what you guys are doing. Hey, do you want to be involved in the American Dental Association's annual session and do something there?" And so it's amazing how all of that can kind of
Yeah,
play out when
that
you
was
let it.
insane.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were just this whole I don't think we would have dove into this channel quite much with such fervor, so much of
Fervor.
fervor
That's a good word.
if
You're
we
really
weren't
utilizing some good words.
it,
Total fervor. We got
thanks.
to bring some things back into
Yeah, thanks,
the
man.
ether.
Yeah, so I just don't think we would have pursued this with as much fervor if we didn't get denied. So in a way, we got to say thank you.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
We'll have to send a
I feel like
note.
this little Taylor Swift moment.
Yeah. So adventure. What we are. eh,
Life, the great adventure.
Yeah. Life is a great adventure. And, you know, what's your journey?
My journey specifically, I'm 30 I'm 33 right now. I'm just starting to realize what my adventure might look like. And it's super cool to kind of get there. I think as kiddos, our parents kind of choose our adventure for us. They put us into
Mm,
sports. They tell us kind of what grades to make. We feel like we not owe them something, but we feel like we have to please everybody else, especially when you're in school. And then when you get out of school, something cool happens. You start getting on your own adventure, and that's kind of what this is about: is finding your own adventure. It doesn't mean you have to start your own company, and it doesn't mean you have to, uh, you know, totally forsake your your lifestyle choices right now. But what it can mean is you take some moments, kind of getting off the scrolling of Instagram, and instead take some moments and reflect. Get a journal. You got a journal.
I
Is that
do.
right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
Get a cool pen.
I've got several journals. I've got a cool
Get a
pen.
cool pen, a cool journal, and jot down some notes. 5 to 10 minutes in a day, and just say, "Hey, what is my adventure?" And it doesn't. Some people have kids as their adventure, and I think that's a lovely adventure. But don't forget to kind of remember you are more than just your kids.
That's a good point. And I think on my side of the equation, I'm not in my 30s. I am kind of on a second half of life
Bob's in
adventure.
his 70s.
You're so wrong. Now, this is a podcast. Now you can see us over on YouTube at Between Two Teeth on YouTube if you actually want to take a look. But no, I'm not in my 70s. I'm slow to mature, and I'm on the second half of life trying to figure it out. I did a lot of things well and a lot of things poorly in the first half, and that's the blessing of just being on an adventure. And that's what this, I think, with Between Two Teeth and the YouTube channel, man, we've had some adventures, and we'd really love you guys to follow us on many of these adventures. We did this motorcycle wellness tour, and it's something I never thought I would do.
And I love what you say by follow us,
Oh,
please.
thank you.
I would amend that statement.
Oh, she's going
Actually,
to amend it.
I'm gonna
Yes.
amend it. I don't like the word follow.
Okay, don't follow us at all.
No,
Whatever you
I
do.
think from a clarification standpoint,
Oh,
of course we want,
clarification.
followers
Yeah.
for sure. But our followers, I want to kind of be teammates, or I want our followers to be part of our family. I want our followers to connect with us and share their discoveries with us. I want our followers to collaborate with us.
And I think that probably is why don't you talk about our why? Because
Right.
it ties into exactly what you're talking about.
So part of our why is we don't, we want to connect with as many people as possible. Connecting with people, I kind of see as not having just a mindless follower, but having someone that shares their own stories. We talked about that in an earlier episode where don't go ask advice, ask them to share their story. And so we want to connect with as many people as possible. We really want to discover new things about others, ourselves, and the world. I think this world is as big or small as you make it. And there are these two, this is a concept you can have in business. You can have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And a lot of times with a growth mindset, the sky is the limit, and your pie just keeps expanding.
Ooh, I like that. I'm a huge fan of the
Pie.
pie. Well, you're not wrong. If you're looking at us on YouTube, you will notice that. Yeah, I
One
probably
of
have.
us,
one of
one
us
of
is
us likes the
one of
pie.
us has eaten a moderate amount of pie
I
and
actually
cakes and
love.
things like that.
I don't like pie. I love cake.
Well, so there you go. Um, what were we just talking about there?
So I'm talking about the pie can get
Oh,
bigger,
the pie can get
and you
bigger.
love that
So
analogy.
many people are of a fixed mindset, and it actually drives me bonkers when they look at it and say, there can only be one person that can win. There's only so much creative space. There's only so much money. There's only so many things you can create and expand when you have the right mentality.
When you have the right mentality, you have the right leaders and the right participants in the group. Anything's possible. One quote we heard recently was, "There's nothing too vulnerable people. There's nothing that two vulnerable people can't do in life," and I believe that's true for business partners. I believe that's true for spouses, true for parent-kid relationships, any relationships, two friends, any relationships we have in life. If you have two vulnerable people trying to solve a problem, I think
You
human
can
beings
solve the
have
problem.
hope.
So you talked about our why as far as connect,
Discover.
discover,
And then the last
and then
top,
what's the
yeah,
last
the
component?
last kind of part of that is inspire. So allowing ourselves to be inspired by the universe. You love saying sometimes it's nice to let the universe guide you, take you where it will. Uh, Allowing others to be inspired by the universe around ourselves, to be inspired by the universe around us, and eventually inspire others. I think leading by example here, that's what we're trying to do with Connect, Discover, and Inspire is we want to, we're not trying to, fight any kind of predetermined course. We're just trying to enjoy the ride, have fun along the way. And man, if we ended up inspiring someone, that's like to me, that's the best thing.
And one of the coolest things is we've actually had a fair number of people reach out and be inspired by a variety of some of the different things that we did. Part of it was just feeling connected to us and seeing as we kind of move through things. Part of it was being inspired by either the Italian motorcycle adventure or the Ukraine mission that we went on by taking a team over to Warsaw, Poland. It,
What's a fair number? I know a couple is two,
no,
a
we're
few
not.
is three
No,
or
no,
more.
I'm not going to get into
If
the
you go up
number.
to
No, I'm
a
going to tell.
fast food window and you're like,
You know
"Hey,
what?
can I have a fair number of fries?" They're gonna
I'm,
be like, "Is
I,
that
I'm.
5?
You know what?
Is that
I'm not.
15?"
I'm not a person that counts numbers.
You know what? This length
We
is gonna be
had
a fair number of
we had
minutes.
5 subscribers to our YouTube
It's
channel
like when
for
people say,
a
"Hey, give me a
long
minute,"
period of time.
or "It's been a minute."
So how did this? We talked a little bit about Zach Galifianakis being the inspiration. Our humor is a little bit off. I grew up in Canada. That's part of it. We think things are funny
Can you give
and
us 2 Canadian words real quick that would
oot
prove.
in a boot.
Ooh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
and sorry,
How do you say milk?
I'm not going to say it.
Milk.
I think it's spelled MELK, milk, but I digress.
Milkins.
So a lot of life, I think, and it applies to our channel here, is you just have to start. And when you start, you will not be good at so many different things. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, for
Does
sure.
that hold you back sometimes where you don't want to start until you're perfect or you get
No.
in there and you're like,
I
I'm
If
I'm
you're an
just going to go for it.
experiential learner like me,
You are
you start knowing it's going to be a mess. But you love that because then if you and I've been I was talking to a gal, she's getting into hockey right now. We both play hockey. And she never did sports as a kid. Hockey is her first sport. The hockey team I'm on is full of new to hockey players, but a lot of those players played soccer, basketball, something in their childhood. So they're sporty, and with the exception of her, she is not. And so what I told her is I was like, hey, sorry, I'm getting a signal. I'm just making sure we're on the same
Yeah,
page.
we're on the same page.
So what I told her was, look, when you're trying to get good at something, it's knowing that you're going to be terrible at it at first, and focus on the basics. Don't try to focus on this wraparound shot. Little by little, that's how you get good, really, really good at things. Whether it's sports or if you're trying to practice, whatever. Very, very small baby steps. A little bit every day goes a long way.
I think being okay with not being great, certainly off the get-go. I think just having the courage to start the adventure. I've had many people in my life that I've looked at and said, oh my gosh, I'm inspired by what they're doing, and I could never do that. But then I'd look at it and say, but you know what? I can do a little bit moving in that direction. And I've had people push me for my own why. I ended up being pretty burned out. I'd been in clinical practice for some time. I took a month off to do a public policy fellowship and took the entire month of April off. And for me, it was eye-opening. It was a leadership management sort of thing. And they actually had talked about burnout. And it was one of the last days of the class. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm burned out. And sometimes you have to get removed from a situation to really fully appreciate where you're at. But it was helpful because during that time, I was able to kind of develop my own why. And I know you developed your why. And for people listening to this, I would push them, because that's what I do, to sit down and say, what's your why?
I think yours was from the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
I have no idea what that reference
Eat, Pray,
is.
Love.
Is that you keep saying eat, pray, love. So here's the deal. I'm doing this public policy fellowship. A lot of the people in the group
it
were
just
like,
rhymes with your, if Eat, Pray, Love just tends to rhyme with yours.
okay, stop. Because I felt kind of bad developing my own why.
So your first why was actually, I thought, limiting. I thought it was a fixed mindset.
It was.
And this is not the one we're joking about right now. It was
Right.
one before that one.
It was pretty bad.
And that's where I meant to kind of I meant to inspire you to venture elsewhere.
You're not wrong. But
the next one you had was pretty cool. Live, laugh, love.
Are you done?
Live, laugh, love.
No.
And the funny thing is that you're around these military professionals and they all got these
that's what I'm trying to say.
Mission statements of power.
I've got these people that like they're on
seriousness.
They're on track to be ambassadors of
Bob
countries.
Steps up and goes, live, laugh, love.
Are you done?
Tra-la-la-la.
If you could see on YouTube right now, you'd see Steph just smiling away.
It's exactly what
kind of slightly off
what
to
that
the side.
Group kind of needed. And
I'm still trying to tell my story.
No, tell it. I'm giving you this signal.
Okay, very good. So now I will complete the story. So I sat down. We had a class on, what the why is. And really, you want to have something that's pretty concise and meaningful. And yes, my first one that I came up, my first many were super duper basic. You done? See, if you run YouTube, you could see why I said that. But anyways, it was super duper basic. And then I got closer and closer and closer. And I came up with my purpose was to live, laugh, and love. And I modified a little bit after that. I felt it was too basic because that's a common thing, but I've always loved that. And I love to live. I love to laugh. And I love to love. So I ended up having it where my purpose is, she's doing a love sign right now if you're not on YouTube. My purpose is to push myself and others to fully live, laugh, and love. And for me, it was important to push because I like to push myself and I like to push others. And the fully part. So get out there and get your why and sit down and write some things down. And the
You know,
first several are going to be terrible.
on yours, we went back and forth on your purpose statement, whether to put push into it. It's crazy because you're a pusher, but this is kind of a difference between kind of, I don't know, like young versus experienced doc, or female versus male. Is that I felt like, you know, when I pushed others towards things, especially in residency,
Didn't
I
work so well.
I was labeled as pushy.
Yeah.
And so when you said you want to push others, I'm like, ooh, you want to make sure you're not being pushy. But when you push others, it's different. And so you don't get labeled as pushy. You get kind of labeled as a leader.
Hmm. Thank you. I think that's a compliment. So
Complimentary more.
talk about your development of your why. And once again, if you haven't sat down with a piece of paper, a quiet space, or go for a walk and think about it, that's my push to people that are listening to this, is to say, really sit down and know you're going to modify it with time. But was it easy coming up with your why?
I felt like it was fairly easy. You know, I played around with words for sure, but connect, discover, inspire just seemed to hit all three. So I my first word of my why was really based on what I am craving most at this point in my life, which is connection. And it's interesting because you know, in my generation, when we had social media in high school, we had the text, you know, phones in high school where people texted each other a lot. And the one-on-one, the verbal communication was sometimes there, sometimes not. And we're just now entering, you know, over the period of the past, you know, 5 to 10 years, maybe we've been entering this space of mental health and well-being, and understanding words like trigger, and understanding the importance of uncomfortable conversations. And that all has to do with connection. And
And communication, which you had
right.
kind of referenced earlier.
And sometimes I don't know, like I can't speak for all millennials, but
No, go ahead. Speak
I
for all
am a
millennials.
millennial, and what I can speak from my experience is that, you know, I just, and it's easier to text somebody than to pick up the phone and call. And I definitely don't want to have an awkward conversation. But what I'm also realizing is, if you don't tell your story, or if you don't, you know, kind of put yourself out there and be a little vulnerable, there's going to be a lot of miscommunication. Assumptions wreak havoc. And you know, one thing that women tend to do is, you know, they tend to, at least for me, I tend to kind of catastrophize things in my head. And so for me, it's especially difficult to have those uncomfortable conversations, because a lot of times my frame, my reference, my lens is, you know, built upon emotional data and non-factual. And so one thing that I've pushed some of my mentees towards, and myself, is to look at the facts, and really try to tease away the facts from the accelerated emotional thinking.
I like that a lot. And I like that your why became the why for Between Two Teeth,
Oh yeah.
just because it made so
You
much
know, when
sense.
you're on motorcycles, discovery is inevitable, and you tend to discover things about yourself, about the world around you. It's crazy where two wheels will take you.
Oh, I like that. I rode motorcycles as a kid. I I was terrified to get back on a motorcycle. And I think part of my life journey was, I need to put fear in the right perspective. I know you did a great LinkedIn article uh, talking about fear, but I don't want to be fearful.
I want to in
Are
the
you fearful?
Oh, I think we're all fearful.
Oh, okay.
You know, for me,
Are you overly
the
fearful? Is that a better question?
maybe in some ways, yes, some ways, no. You know, my last thing on my why was inspire, because this really hits on the philosophical question of, are we enough, and what do we
Mm.
assign to ourselves to make us enough? And when you think about it, you're like, okay, to be enough, do I have to inspire other people? That's kind of not on that's not a you thing. You know, all you can do is show up and be you, and if you happen to inspire people, yeah, that's great.
And so what
But inspiring somebody has more to do with them and where they're at in their life.
it does, except for the fact that if you're afraid to communicate, if you're afraid to put a message out there, if you're afraid to be vulnerable, we are videotaping this as well for YouTube. You keep yawning. No, don't do that. Steffi Steph is a character. But if you don't put your message out there, then you're not going to inspire people. And I guess part of our push too is to say, if you have something that you think is going to be helpful, because I think all of us
And
really
I
want to make
guess,
the universe better.
oh yeah, and I think I guess what I mean a little bit more specifically is that the times in my life where I've inspired somebody else or I've made an impression on somebody else, I wasn't even trying.
That's the way life works.
And so, take riding a motorcycle in Italy. I think everybody rides motorcycles and scooters. But what I didn't realize is not a lot of women ride the big bikes
Really
that I was
large.
on.
It was a large BMW.
And so it's kind of cool seeing some of the, Italy is a little sexist. So it was kind of fun to see some of the men on the sidelines just kind of looking at me like,
Every
wow,
time we
this
would
is a
stop
circus
somewhere,
act.
there would be men who were in their 70s and 80s, and they would get up from their table where they were eating, and they'd walk over to watch you get on the motorcycle. And I think it was shock and awe. And then you just toddle off and away you go.
And one thing I learned about riding a big bike is that, of course, any motorcycle is dangerous, but it was kind of overcoming a fear a little bit because it's very intimidating feat. But once you're on the bike and once you understand the balance structure of it, it's actually phenomenally easy.
I like it because it makes me a better automobile driver. Because I was not a great
When you're,
car driver.
so
I wouldn't pay attention. On a motorcycle, you're paying attention to everything.
For sure. My lens is the world's a very scary place for my lens.
Oh, come on. It is not.
It is.
Why? Tell me why.
You go around, you're a big dog. You get to go around looking down at the world. I go around looking up at it.
If you're a podcaster, no, if you're listening on this podcast and you can't see, Steph is not a tall human.
It's tall, and I'm not incredibly short, but I'm 5'3", so do with that what you will. And so it's just my lens will always be someone that is looking up to most people, and it's tricky. Technically, I look up to some 18-year-old people, and that's kind of that messes with your mind a little bit. And so when you look at working with others, inspire, being an inspiration, inspiring others, and for me, connect, discover, and inspire. It's just it all has to do with your lens and how you see the world and how others see you.
You inspire me. I certainly would not have taken the Italian motorcycle adventure. I would not have taken, some of the California motorcycle trips up to Big Sur.
Oh, thanks.
So it's good to surround yourself with people that will inspire you. That's a basic statement for me to say. But I'm also going to say another basic statement. Never say never except to say what I just said.
So talk about how a lot of people were against us doing this.
Yeah, social media, and this is one of the things I learned in my MBA that I did a couple of years ago. Social media is your best friend, and it can also be your worst enemy. And I had several of my faculty, actually, when I first put out the YouTube channel, couple that were more comfortable with vulnerability, 100% on board. Glad you're getting that message out there. Some of the other ones that were not comfortable with vulnerability, they're like, oh my gosh, why on earth would you do this? It's difficult somewhat for us. We're both professionals. I'm part of a regulatory agency as well, so I've always got to be mindful of that. I love to curse, but
No.
Did you
say your faculty reached out to you?
Oh, I thought you were going to say the F word there.
Don't
say the F word.
Did you say your faculty reached out to you?
They did.
Like from dental school?
No, my faculty from my MBA. Just because I had posted things on LinkedIn
was like,
and
no
all this
offense,
kind of
bro,
stuff.
but are they?
Well, I've had. Well,
are
so
they? One, are they on social media? And then two, like, really?
Are you serious? Now you're definitely going to have to
didn't-
get to YouTube
It just didn't.
on Between Two
it didn't
Teeth to
really-
see what I. look like there. But I've
Didn't
also
pass
had dentals.
mustard, if
So
that's
I've
a thing.
actually had, I don't think it's a pass mustard. Did you literally just say that? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. You
What's the saying?
you young people. It's mustard, I think.
No, it's mustard.
I don't know. I love
Put
mustard
it in the
and I love
comments.
relish. Listen,
Did it not
let's
pass
let's
mustard?
let's not get sidetracked here. So never say never. Follow the path of the universe.
No, a lot of people were against this.
A lot of people were against us for a variety of reasons. I think a lot of times things come down to sometimes people are fearful. Sometimes, certainly, people are jealous. I had some significant, well, I know you're into numbers. I had several people kind of say, "Why are you doing this?" And that's where having your own confidence to say, "I'm doing this because I want to do it." This is frankly why having the why was important for me. That I do want to connect with others and I do want to try to get a message out there. I want to try to have an impact and I want to be impacted by others. The fact that we're doing this, the fact that your article got rejected the way that it did, the fact that
Rejection.
we got invited to the ADA annual session because of that rejection, that got us in a spot. We were last year around this time, we're getting ready. We basically just snuck into this annual session, something called SmileCon. If you're in the dental arena, you'll understand that. And you reached out to the keynote speakers people. The keynote speaker was Brene Brown. Shout out to Brene Brown.
Love
Love,
her.
love Brene Brown.
Love her.
And you reached out to her people and said, "Hey, I think you said we were podcasters. And technically, this is our first podcast, and this is like a year and a half later, but we were YouTubers. We literally had like 15 subscribers. We wanted to interview Brene Brown." And you put the ask out there. They politely, would they say politely said
No.
no? So they politely said
They were
no.
like, hell no.
Well, that's what they were thinking, but they were polite about it. Some folks at the ADA kind of found out about this, and some thought we were definitely off our rocker. But now, a year later, we are the hosts for that meeting, and we are interviewing. Shout out Constance Wu. We are interviewing this year's keynote speaker on the big stage. And to go from having an ask of, "Hey, can we interview you with our GoPro camera as you walk up to the stage," to now we're doing that because we didn't let things stop us. And I think that's kind of the important
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
push.
One of the cool things about you is that you're persistent. And
Yes.
it's not that you don't take no, but it's something different. It's I think you tend to ask different ways.
What do you mean by that?
I think instead of you don't get mad if you get a no. Rejection doesn't seem to phase you, and it's instructive because even though you get told no quite a bit, you just kind of I use the analogy: you shake up the snow globe and see where the snowflakes fall, and then you do a re-ask, or you ask a different person, or you try to figure out a different angle. And that's admirable because a lot of times when someone tells you no, you really don't know why they're telling you no. And part of the approach I think that's been successful for you and has kind of landed us on the stage is that kind of getting down to having a very nuanced understanding of, well, why is it a no, or why is there no response, and not getting emotionally tied to that, but just saying, well, what's the facts?
I don't like emotion.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I try to utilize emotion to serve me well, but emotion can serve you very poorly,
Right, but
especially with what you're
yeah,
talking about there.
for sure. Yeah, from a working together standpoint, emotion can be tricky. But from a human being standpoint and a connection standpoint, I think emotion is the biggest thing.
So emotion
Can
is
you
the
have a connection without emotion?
no, you can't, I think, but also, and I'm not saying what I'm against is uncontrolled
Are
emotion
you
because
against the first word of our mission statement?
no, I like
You just said
connect.
you hate
No, I'm saying
emotion.
put emotion in perspective. One of the greatest things I learned in my MBA was the term amygdala hijack. We won't get into it now. Google amygdala hijack. It can change your level of effectiveness. You need to have a little bit more coffee. Do we
So, so
take a
I,
pause?
so I love what this little point we're on though is huge because oftentimes I think women have a lot of bonding relationships, but they don't have a lot of bridging ones. Bridging relationships are like, oh, I got a job for you. I can get you a job. I'm a CEO. We're looking
Mm,
for a CFO. Let's make this connection work. Women tend to have more an easier time forming bonding relationships. Let's grab tea. Let's grab mimosas. Let's go brunch. Come see my baby. Women are a lot easier going at that. And it's easier for women because I think we're more tied into our emotions necessarily than some guys. And where I think as females, kind of you see more and more females in these top leadership positions. I'm reading a book right now, When Women Lead. It's an effort by a journalist to expose headhunters or people who are looking for CEOs of companies to what they can expect when they have a CEO that's a female. And it's about getting them familiar with what to expect when a woman leads. And the reason I bring that up is because as we try to strip away emotion, it gets away from the bonding connection and it transforms that into more of a bridging network, a network that's based on facts and based on getting things done, deadlines, and the like. And so I think there's room for both. And as we talk about connection, though, you can't strip away the emotion. I think emotion
so
makes
you
connection
can't,
magical and happen.
and I think if you want to be effective, and a big part of that public policy fellowship that I did was figuring out how to be most effective. I think a lot of the bullet points there is appropriately managing emotion on your side of the equation, but also the person or people that you're interacting with. That's where amygdala hijack gets in. Once again, Google amygdala hijack. The other thing is communication. You referenced it early. You're in your early 30s. You grew up in a texting culture. I didn't have a phone until like the last part of undergrad. And so communication, your ability to verbally and non-verbally communicate will make or break you.
Yeah. And if you're communicating with someone, or if you are that person who doesn't feel good about yourself, where you're at in life, or just doesn't have that comfortability there, you're going to have to spend a lot more time communicating and supporting those emotional deficiencies. Maybe I don't know what the word would be, but you're going to have to spend a lot more of your life force energy supporting that person, building that person up to get the best out of them because they're not telling themselves those things.
And I like that you brought up life force energy because realistically, that's something I certainly look at, and especially as someone who's kind of on the second part of living life and trying to live their best life. What is giving me energy, what is inappropriately taking away energy, knowing knowing when to say yes, knowing when to say no. I think you and I are terrific at saying yes. We're getting better at saying no and dropping off toxic relationships, toxic organizations.
And it's easy to, know when to quit and know when to stick. It's easy to
You
say,
got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. I used to think I was really good at
I'm gonna let
karaoke,
that go.
and that was my karaoke
And the
song.
reason I bring that up, there's a kind of a fun little book that is the
Oh,
title.
fun.
It's knowing when to quit and when to stick. And the book is made to talk about waiting out the dip. And most
Mm,
companies that are gonna, so say you got a big company like Microsoft. it's really tough to wait out the dip because these big companies have created these, what is it, like almost like a force field around them because they're so popular and they've just been at this for so long. So most companies that try to compete in a direct sense of that or a direct space of that, they don't have enough resources, time, money, energy to wait out that dip. So they end up quitting. When you apply that to a lot of our daily life situations, hey, do I stay at this job? Do I stay in this relationship? Do I quit this one because it's not serving me? Especially the younger you are, you don't know which relationships are serving you well. You really
Mm.
don't know which ones. Hey, I just need to have a short conversation here and work past our awkwardness or our miscommunication versus saying, this is not someone that is going to be healthy in my life. I need to quit this relationship.
And to bring it full circle, that's where I think having a why can be helpful,
Yeah, it's a
because
lighthouse.
we've looked at different things and it's a lens at which we look at, do we want to do this or not do this?
I agree.
I think you need to get more sleep. You know what? Sleep's important. And as we go on this adventure, we're trying to figure out how to live our best lives. We want you guys to join us on the adventure of that and well-being. We're both very involved with wellness and well-being on the regulatory side of things within dentistry, for instance, through the American Dental Association. We're going to push a bunch of things out there. But we're very thankful. If anyone's made it to this part in our podcast slash YouTube, because we're still YouTubers, we're the OG. Well, we're not the OG YouTubers, but that's how we started.
We're new on the scene and we're just
We're new and on the
we're
scene and we're
getting
different.
comfortable in the environment. We're trying to define where we're
But
going
let's not get too comfortable.
and we want to. Oh yeah, we're definitely not in the comfortable stage.
When you look at some of my reels that I post on Instagram be the number 2 teeth, you go, well, that's a little off. My music selection sometimes a little off as
It's
well.
different, but it's not about, we're in the new beginning phase of creating a brand and seeing where that adventure goes. And that's why we want people to connect with us, because you could do this too.
Yes.
And this is not a space that is only one person. We say the pie can get really a lot bigger. We want to collaborate with like-minded individuals, and we just want to kind of grow, learn, develop together, and get to a real fun spot with a lot of cool people.
Fun. I'm glad you brought up fun, because really, we both love adventure. We love fun. Now, we do serious things as well.
An analogy, I think, for life, the journey of life is, imagine life is a party. Do you want to spend that party just with yourself? Do you just want one person at that party? Or do you want that party to be filled with a lot of people in your life? And it just kind of helps guide you. Who do you want to bring along to that party? Who do you want to spend those hours with? As we kind of wrap up here, my family has a big 4th of July party every year, and it's super cool and fun because it's one of the longest freaking parties of the year.
They have a 12-hour party,
and
that's a little
and
insane.
You have to really think about it. You're like, okay, when do we tell people to show up? It doesn't get dark enough for fireworks, so about 9:30. My parents sometimes tell people to show up at noon. I'm like, Mom, Dad, who do you know that you want to spend 9.5 hours with? And I was like, awkward silence. And they're like, yeah, I guess, it just depends on what we're doing and kind of, where it goes. When we try to figure out who do we want at that party, we kind of look at it in the same way. Who do you want to spend 9.5 hours with talking about life? Who do you want to have a beer with? And that just kind of is a great analogy for life. Who do you want on your journey with you? And put your time, effort, energy into getting the right people and doing the right things.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. It's important, you're often the average of your 5 closest friends. And part of that is choose wisely. And listening to a podcast pretty recently, when you talk about mentors, you can have online mentors, for instance. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I know you do as well. those are people you're spending time with. And those are people that their messages and their way of being and their why is in your head.
And it's okay also to not have your 5 closest friends immediately. What I'm learning is it's more so you're curating. And as you kind of go through life, it's okay not to have all 5 right at the right at the start. And I'm working on a book with what I believe will be one of them, and she's phenomenal. And I can't. I'm trying not to relay some of that info here just yet, but I'm really excited about some of the content coming from that as well.
Surround yourself with phenomenal people.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, we thank you so much. Please hit the subscribe if this is a podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, you could see some of the adventures that were going on the video.
Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love.
Eat, pray, love.
Connect, discover, and inspire. We want to connect with you.
Inspire greatness in others and yourself.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.